All right, Uncharted 2 Among Thieves is almost upon us, but before we hunker down and get the review out there and just kind of tell you what's going on with the game, I have cornered Amy Hennig. You were the creative director at Naughty Dog. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
I understand that you have taken leave of your vacation to be here. Is that correct? Is that how much Uncharted means to you?
Yeah, it's taking leave of my senses and taking leave of my vacation. Yeah, I've been away from the office for about 3 weeks almost, so if I don't make any sense, that's why. I'm in vacation mode still.
Well, I never make sense, so you know, should be okay there. So I've played about a third of the new game, and I had an interesting experience because I never played the first game until last week. So
yeah, I'm getting that a lot. What's the problem here?
I don't know what happened 2 years ago. Something was going on. There was something in the water, but. So I played all the way through it in a pretty short span of time, and then immediately, like the same day,
cool, actually.
It is, and the same day I went into the new game and saw, the contrast in what you guys did 2 years ago and what you've done now. But you haven't gone through that development experience. Where were you at the end of the first game? Like, what did you think you guys had maybe not done as well as you wanted to? What areas did you focus on the most in going into this project?
Well, that's a hard one to answer simply, right? I mean, I think we knew that we wanted to blend some of our mechanics a little bit better than we did on the first one, that some of the modes of the gameplay in terms of traversal and gunplay and problem solving, that we could have done a lot better just getting that stuff to flow together more than feeling like you were kind of sections dedicated to that gameplay. We also knew that we really had only just barely scratched the surface of what we could do with the PlayStation 3. And the first thing that we did, the programmers I should say did, when we finished is just sort of tore it all back down, tore the whole engine back down, and re-optimized everything so that now we really are taking full advantage of the SPUs and the cell processor. And people always laugh when you try to quantify that. I don't blame them, right? But the fact is that it does take some wizardry to try to get all those kind of, I think the analogy they've used is keeping plates spinning, and it does take a lot of work to make sure that you're really actually having everything firing on all cylinders. And there's still more that we can do, for sure. I mean, we're absolutely pushing that hardware, but we can always optimize and we can always do more.
Shall we? After you, Butch. See you in hell, kid.
It's a really character-driven game, obviously. You guys, you essentially have made kind of an action movie, Indiana Jones style, sort of swashbuckling adventure in game format, but there's a lot of climbing, a lot of shooting going on. There's only so much room for dialogue. How do you cram all that characterization into that short time?
Well, I think part of it is that if you establish who the characters are in some of the non-interactive sequences, it helps sort of cement that perception of the characters in the player's mind so that they can then infer and interpret some of the other behaviors based on that persona, right? Also, I think the fact that we've kind of created this complex proprietary animation system that we use for the characters, particularly for Nate, where you see the fact that he's moving like a human being, that he's a little clumsy, he stumbles a little bit, he flinches and, throws himself into cover all kinds of different ways, and he's just not very graceful. This is not an acrobat. This isn't a trained martial artist or even a trained, weapons master kind of guy. He's a guy that picked up these skills on the street. And I think part of just conveying that sort of rough and tumble aspect of his character, it comes through that animation system. And again, it was really difficult to build that system up, but it's the core of who he is. Now, on top of that, we have the VO that'll play during gameplay, and a lot of that is, a hell of a lot of it is a credit to Nolan North, who plays Drake. We work with him, we work with all the actors on a continual basis over the entire production, and a lot of what's in the game is ad-libbed. What we do is, I take the gameplay footage into the studio, and he actually will ad-lib freeform to the footage, and so a lot of the little quips and comments and reactions, people say that, my God, I just thought this and then he said it. Yeah. It's because it's Nolan reacting to the game.
Are you sure about this?
Desperate times, right?
What does that mean?
So Drake is a pretty iconic character, and Mr. North has obviously played a large part in establishing that. But he's also been kind of making the rounds recently. He's been the Prince of Persia. He's been a guy from Shadow Complex. Are you guys going to lock him down at some point and make sure that he is known as Drake and nobody else? Or?
Well, that wouldn't really be fair to him. He's a working actor after all.
Keep him on retainer,
I guess I wish some of these other developers were maybe a little bit more thought of it a little bit more independently. That's not fair, I guess. I'm joking. But, you know, it is. I only wish him the best in his career. And I think it's so cool to see that in the last couple of years, I mean, he's getting a lot of really great lead roles and all. It's tough, though, because, you know, Nolan's got this great personality, and we just tapped into that, you know. I mean, when we cast him, we're like, we just want you to be you, dude. You know, it's like he'd been cast to play a lot of different characters, and he does all these dialects, and he's a great voice matching guy and stuff like that. And he hadn't really been cast to just be his funny self. Right. And so it's a little disappointing to see other people sort of like going, yeah, we want to do that too. But, you know, on the other hand, it's like, you know, it's all good for Nolan, so I can't fault him any of that.
Yeah, hello.
So in the kind of the yearbook of Uncharted, I feel like the most improved superlative goes to the shooting. That definitely has struck me as having been refined. Did you guys step back from the first game and look at a lot of other shooters on the market? How did you go about kind of focusing and refining that aspect of the game?
You know, I mean, we always look at other games, right? But we really just looked at our game objectively. I mean, what's nice about Naughty Dog is we're really a non-hierarchical company, and so it's expected that everybody speaks up and critiques each other's work and calls each other out on things that aren't up to snuff. And it's meant to be a very collaborative environment where, you know, people aren't sort of put into boxes of like, well, you're an artist, so you shouldn't comment on this, you're not a designer. We expect everybody to act like a game designer. So what's great is then when we're looking at the game, and you know, chances are if you've seen something on the message boards, we're saying it internally too, and we read all the message boards. And so if we see something up there, comment a lot from people where they're saying, you know, the aiming feels a little too loose, or I'm having trouble with the cover. Chances are, like I said, not only have we already commented on it ourselves, but when we see that, we go, yeah, that's a problem. We're going to have to do something about that. We're very kind of customer oriented. It's tough though. I mean, it's always a balance, right? So, you know, you kind of have to dial in what it is that you're after, and sometimes you're just a little miss the mark a little bit, dial back, you know, and sometimes it's over the course of multiple projects even, you know. But as long as you kind of keep yourself honest and don't sort of like start thinking your poop doesn't stink, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, just you guys have built up a very iterative kind of development process. Yeah. Excuse me. I mean, with the Crash games and then Jack and now this. I mean, I'll just ask you flat out: are you guys on to Uncharted 3? You know, in 3 weeks, or are you going to try to maybe go in a slightly?
I mean, really, we're on a kind of a break right now because we really killed ourselves on this one. I don't think people quite realize that we actually made this game in about 18 months, and that was a longer single-player experience, a feature-length movie, basically, in terms of the cutscenes and all of the online features, the multiplayer and the co-op. And we kind of looked back and said, how did we do that? We just basically just kind of went into zombie mode and just killed ourselves to do it. And so everybody's taking a lot of time off and just recharging the batteries right now. But the reception on the game is so great right now. I can't imagine that we were not going to be making another one. It's not an announcement. I mean, it's just like, it just seems like common sense, doesn't it? And we love it. We love the characters. We love the franchise. And like I said, we'll keep making them as long as people keep wanting them.
So is now a bad time to ask when a PS3 Jack is on the way?
You think I could really,
I'm going to run out of here before I get hit.
Really answer that? I mean, our stock answer is we love that series as much as everybody else does, and would be awesome to see it on you know, a next-gen piece of hardware, see it on the PS3. That's about all I can say about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. All right. Well,
you knew that.
I'm gonna quit while I'm behind here, but I really appreciate your time. Thanks for talking with us.
It was fun. Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Well, I guess I'm not going that way.